Okay.
You're ready.
Everybody have their mics on? We're green. Okay. Let's call this meeting to order. We'll start off with an invocation. Lord, watch over all of us, help us through this crisis, and help us to make the right decisions for our very good citizens of Hannibal. Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, has everybody read the minutes and payrolls? And do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We've got comments from the audience, and I see that Michael Dobson is signed up. Michael, if you'd like to step up and please turn the mic on.
It's green.
You ready?
I'm Mike Dobson. I'm a second ward councilman, mayor pro tem. Bill, I want to say it's nice for you to stick around.
Thank you.
I've been up here many times asking for the board's consideration to, hold the line on rates, and you guys did this last time on the water rates. So I want to say thank you for that, especially in this time of crisis and time of uncertainty. It will help, some of the people plan for the future. There's people out there that, aren't working today. So I'm sure you've seen your unpayables or your unpaid, lists go up on that. And, thank you for the forgiveness. I know that was kind of a state federal program, but the board went along with that. And it's not often that I get, a chance to come up here and thank you guys for the job that you've done. I'm seeing, new faces around the table and look forward to working with you gentlemen. And, just want to say that we were talking earlier, over the weekend, I had a little more than 3 inches of rain in my rain gauge. And this seems to be more of a common occurrence, more and more that we're having the heavier rains. And before us, we've got a long road to go on our stormwater systems. And I hope that between the board and the council, we can work something out on that to start down that road sooner than later. It's something that we've kicked down the road for a long time and is going to have to be addressed now. So I thank you for that, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you for your kind words, Mike. Okay. We'll move on to the general manager operation report. Ken?
Well, actually, that was a good lead into my report, because the one thing I was going to highlight is the 2021 budget was approved by the board on May 11th. It's been filed with the city clerk, and public hearings will not be necessary since the budget doesn't include any rate increases, so they've all been deferred, and we're going to be looking at that in November and December and see how the whole COVID situation impacts us. The 5-year capital improvement plan will be discussed at the Planning and Zoning Committee on May 21st. We provided everybody the ballot for the June 2nd election, and I went ahead and provided the board with that information because there is one item, Proposition R, that is on the ballot that includes the recycling program for the city of Hannibal. And if it passes, there'll be $1.90 per month charge put on every utility bill starting July 1st. So that's an item out there, and everybody has a copy, like I said, of the sample ballot. It's actually a deferral of the April 7th elections due to the COVID situation. The thing that I also want to really highlight that's probably a major accomplishment, but obviously safety and wellness is a key topic and a very important priority for HBPW. And the employees of the utility has actually earned first place, through APPA with all utilities with a little over 52,000 worker hours of safe work. So they've received the APPA Safety Award of Excellence, which is just an outstanding job on their part. So just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that and recognize the folks for the outstanding job that they do throughout the year. You know, the other thing that's out there is with the opening back up of social and economic activity, the Environmental Protection Agency has released some guidance for facilities that have maybe been closed through this period of time. And so being able to flush water inside their own pipes and everything is out there on the website that's available for the customers, and any assistance they may need if they start having taste or odor issues that's not really related to our system, but just related to buildings being closed for an extended period of time. That's something we'd be willing to help with, but that guidance is out there. The legislative session came to an end, May 15th, so a lot of omnibus bills, and I know that there's going to be a lot of information. I don't have a whole lot of information yet to see what was passed and wasn't passed, but we'll be looking at that really closely and probably come with more information next month to the board. The payment kiosk machines are now operational at the Service Center and City Hall, and we did check to see how many transactions, and 55 transactions have been processed on the machines. 31 credit card payments, 22 cash payments, and 2 e-checks are able to be processed, and for a total collection of $11,400. And then the other thing we want to highlight is that the state of emergency is going to come to an end most likely June 15th. So we'll be assessing disconnect notices and late fee suspensions as of the 15th, and then trying to reach out to the customers that may be impacted by this change and try to get ahead of it, and maybe allow a 30-day transition back to the normal processes and procedures prior to the COVID situation. The other thing we're kind of doing to get ready for this phased-in approach back to an open economy is doing some lobby modifications. Currently, we've rearranged the lobby, putting plexiglass and dividers into the lobby for the protection of the customers as well as the customer service representatives. Hopefully that'll be done in the next week or two, and we'll kind of be assessing how that goes. But we're going to be limited on access controls to lobby based on social distancing, where maybe only 4 or 5 customers could be let in at a time when the lobby does open back up. So that's something we'll be talking quite a bit about and looking at access control to maybe manage that situation. The one thing that I was wanting to highlight is all the systems are performing extremely good, and Abe's going to get into his financial report. But total revenues are down about 3%. Operating cash flows are down about 5.5%. We're actually seeing an uptick in cash. But the one thing is there's a whole lot of projects and maintenance that's being delayed, due to the pandemic. So as we kind of move forward, we'll have to kind of monitor capital projects and making sure that they tie in pretty closely with the available cash flows that we have. The electric system has performed extremely well. We've had a lot of high wind days and some storm-related issues, but the system has performed well reliably. But the kilowatt-hour sales for the month of April are down 15% from a year ago, and revenues for the month of April, and Abe's going to hit on this, is down about 12.5%. So that's just something we'll have to kind of see and how it goes, because like we talked at the last board meeting, utilities are usually a lagging indicator than a leading indicator. On the positive side of things, underneath the power supply, production cost or power supply costs are down about 3.7%. This time last year, we were paying about $66.39 for Prairie States. It's down to a little under $64 per megawatt hour. And for the total power supply cost for the system, it's down almost 4.8%. From $61 to $58 per megawatt hour. So some positive things going on for the customers throughout this economic times. Water system is kind of seeing the same impacts. Their revenues are down by 12.5%. As you can tell, overall water production is down 5%. The good thing is expenditures are kind of trending with it. So operating incomes are staying in a pretty decent level. Matt's going to kind of talk a little bit about the transition to the granular activated carbon system and the sodium hypochlorite. And we do thank the board for taking tours of those plants. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because they did an outstanding job of showing some of the new technologies and the capabilities of these assets. The sewer system, not really indicating what the other two, electric and water, were, but their revenues are down 6%. Total treated water is down 27%, but a lot of times that's driven by rain and some other indicators, not just necessarily customer usage. You know, the one thing we were talking a little bit about in the budget was the stormwater system and coming up with a business plan, you know, for the pending capital needs that's out there. And we're going to be having a joint study session with the city and going to put together about 4, 5, 6 people to start really looking at the capital requirements and the improvements currently in the budget. There's a forecast of about $1.5 million of capital advancements to the stormwater system on top of the $1 million that's already been set aside prior to. So come June, July, we may have to come back in with a amendment to the loan agreement to be updated for the additional funding. But we're kind of going to do that on more of a line of credit type of situation where the needs are going to drive the funding that would be transferred to the system. And then the last thing I was wanting to highlight is the great job that the customer service folks have been doing with the new staffing and schedules. But the phone call report is still showing that we're keeping most of the call times down to about 2 minutes, and they processed about 2,800 calls, you know, last month in April. So just doing an outstanding job there. But any questions for the highlights of my report? If not, we'll let Matt come up and present some of the projects and operations items that's going on.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Thank you again. Afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon. Just give you an update on where we stand on the granular activated carbon project. Again, the system's been in operation since the end of March, and right now the contractor is just working on finishing out some of the cleanup items. They were able to do grading around the new roadway and get that seeded. They've also been working on the new sodium hypochlorite feed system. That was something that the board at the time elected to replace the tanks, and also we moved all the feed equipment out of the old chemical building out there to near where the tanks were. And so they've been working on getting the controls and all the plumbing and piping in place for that, and we just had training on the use of that system last Thursday, and probably a couple more weeks before we put that system into operation. That will allow the contractor to remove the temporary tank and finish out some of the piping that needs to go in the ground to complete the project. So all in all, moving along pretty good, and hopefully within another month or so we'll have everything wrapped up. So Dye-maker tank rehabilitation, we'll reevaluate when we want to do the painting of that tank. We're going to meet with the contractor first of June to try to determine, you know, how with this COVID thing, how we get his workforce up here and not
Realistic date, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of tough.
Yeah, probably be closer, maybe September, 1st September. We look to do that. So downtown SSO elimination project. Working with Trek Design Group on documenting all the progress we've made in the past 4 or 5 years, getting that information to DNR in one document, and then what we're trying to do is lay the groundwork so that we don't have to remove that constructed SSO as they had originally requested, because it is ultimately the last line of defense we've got between flooding downtown businesses or releasing sewage to the stormwater holding pond. So trying to lay the groundwork for that. We had a conversation with them end of last August, and they were open to the idea. It was just something we're working on finalizing. And then a couple other projects, we're just trying to chase that. Yes.
Before you go on, could you give us a little more detail on that? It's kind of a mystery to us new folks.
Okay, it's back when the levee was constructed in '93, or finished up in '93, they put a valve on the sanitary sewer system so that if the sanitary sewer system breached outside the levee, it didn't backfeed and flood to downtown through its piping network. What we found is we can close that valve, but then it just becomes a big holding basin. And after a period of time, we have no more capacity, and it starts to either bubble up in a manhole or back into basements. And so at that time, they installed a section of pipe and a valve that discharged the water to the stormwater holding pond. And we would notify DNR when that would occur. And we operated under that premise, I think it was until 2011. And after we did that in 2011, DNR contacted us and said the general manager at the time indicated that you were going to correct this problem back in the late 90s, but nobody here knew about it. And so we've been working on a method so that we don't have to open it as frequent since that time. We've tried to seal up all the manholes. We spent time smoke testing all the sewer system that drains through that portion of town so that we weren't getting rainwater in, using up capacity that we had. We've also did modeling with flow metering out in the system so that we can gauge when we think we would have to use that SSO or constructed SSO. The problem is up until last year, we never really had the extended period of high river. And so we found some issues last year that previously were unnoticed. And so it's just a cat and mouse type game. I mean, you're trying to reduce the volume of either river water or rainwater entering the system, and you fix these two things, and these two problems over here pop up. So, plan moving forward, we'd like to maybe do some lining of some areas outside the flood wall in the low areas of town where there used to be homes. Maybe they weren't sealed off adequately when those homes were demolished. And so line those sections of mains so that we can seal out that water and hopefully retain enough capacity to get the water that we need to get through there back to the wastewater plant and don't have to open that.
By lining, you mean to fill it? With
No,
a
lining,
flowable-
actually use the existing pipe as a hose pipe, and you put a liner on the inside that sets up. Basically, you got one continuous pipe from manhole to manhole with no penetration. So basically sealing the pipe so you don't have any groundwater entering it.
Thank you.
So again, just trying to lay the groundwork with DNR so that we don't have to remove that constructed SSO. With all the rain, we have been seeing more issues with I&I and other portions of the system, one of which is Patchen Street. We've got a few manholes that were old rock laid up manholes, stones and mortar. And so we're working to get that on the schedule this summer to either replace some of them or, come in with a cementitious sealer on the inside to seal out any groundwater coming in. Because send the crews out in the rain, you see water actually coming through the walls of the manhole. And again, it's a system we have to pump the water from, so using up capacity. North Street, we on the storm sewer, we had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor last Friday. Tentatively, weather and river permitting, they're going to come in and start the temporary repair the week of June 15th. They anticipate being able to complete the project in 1 week. So again, that's if the weather and the river cooperate.
Is that just the blow up itself, or are they gonna go back so far?
Got 250 feet. Okay. They're going to go in and line the bottom of it and tie the walls and the floor together. So, yep. That's all I've got, unless you all have any other questions.
No, do not. Do you all guys? Thank you very much, Matt.
All right, thank you.
Abe, you're turning the barrel.
Good afternoon. The first page of your packet there, the balance sheet. Payables increased compared to last month due to incurring some more invoices related to the GAC project. There weren't any other major changes on the balance sheet, with total assets about 1% higher than last month and about 2% higher than a year ago. The next page of your financial packet is current month actual compared to budget. We had a very decent month financially in April. Just with utility-wide net income about 7%, or about $12,000 more than budgeted. Like Ken alluded to, kilowatt-hour sales in the electric fund were down about 15% from a year ago, but that was fortunately offset in large part by lower purchase power and operating expenses. In the water and sewer funds, lower operating expenses more than offset lower revenues. Kind of with the split, I think what we're seeing here is kind of with our split schedule and stuff, we're seeing things like less vehicle expense, fewer materials and supplies going out, that kind of thing. So we're, with the reduction in the scope of our work, that's kind of offsetting some of these lower revenues. That 15% reduction year over year in kilowatt hour sales was pretty stunning when I saw that, and I was glad that our power supply and stuff was able to offset most of that. The next page is our current month actual compared to the same month last year. Lower operating revenues in the electric and sewer funds compared to the same month a year ago were more than offset by lower expenses in the water fund, causing utility-wide net income to be about $83,000 higher than the same month a year ago. The year ago numbers are skewed heavily by the bond sale we did in the water fund a year ago, which caused professional fees and stuff like that to be a lot higher in conjunction with that bond sale. The next page is your current fiscal year-to-date actual compared to budget. Have a typo there. That's what happens when you are working from home at a folding table and you're trying to get your board packet done on time. So not 10 months, but 10 months into the fiscal year. Utility-wide net income is about 38% more than budgeted. Lower than budgeted operating revenues in the electric fund are being more than offset by savings and purchase power in that fund. The water fund, fortunately, continues to reflect the favorable results of the 2 months of unbudgeted sales due in the discounted early payoff with Ross County Public Water Supply District Number 1. Sewer funds results, second typo, are nearly identical to budget. So all in all, 10 months in, which kind of sets a pretty good trend for the whole year. It's a very solid year financially, and again, very much in line with our budget. With utility-wide operating revenues and expenses, both within about 2% of their budgeted amounts, which kind of gives me confidence, based on our budget workshop we had a week ago, that our budgeting model does make sense and does, generally work for our utility. The next page there is current fiscal year-to-date actual compared to the same time period last year. Utility-wide net income is about 14% less than the same time period last year. Compared to those 10 months, lower operating revenues in the electric fund and higher operating expenses in all funds are more than offsetting lower purchase power costs in the electric fund and higher operating revenues in the water fund. Based on in the next page there, based on some feedback from Mr. Dees, I had a couple of pie charts showing, these are just my little first stab at these, kind of showing the composition of our revenues and our expenses. This kind of shows you the magnitude of if there was theoretically in the future a rate increase. It kind of shows which customer classes would bear the brunt of that. It also shows the composition of our expenses. Purchase power being a very, very significant line item. That's why, of course, Ken refers to it. That's the major part of our business there. Of course, then followed by things like wages and fringe and materials, things like that. And of course, you have your dashboard, your investments, things like that. The investment program we discussed at our budget workshop of investing the short-term pooled reserves at Commerce Capital Markets is going well. Most of that money's been placed, and we're getting about 5 times as much as we were on blended average as we were on the insured cash sweep account. So that's happening according to plan. That's the books. You guys have any
Questions, fellas?
questions, thoughts? Rotten fruit, I always make that option. Or rotten vegetables too, we'll take that.
Thanks for taking the time with the pie charts. It makes it a whole lot quicker to understand the numbers and how it breaks down into the whole. I do appreciate it.
Gives me a chance to kind of freshen up my Excel. It's easy to use the same thing year over year, and you just kind of keep dropping numbers in. It's a chance to kind of do things new.
Thank you very much, Abe.
Thanks, Bill.
Oh, no attorney. No comments from the attorney. General discussion.
If I may, I really appreciate Matt giving us the tour, not only of the water plant, but the sewer plant. It really did open my eyes to what's happening, particularly in water. Fortunately, John and I started at water first and then ended up at sewer. It's just a little bit more fun. But the general public understanding and knowing about the significant efforts daily, particularly for the last year, are impressive out there. And eventually I would hope that we could get some of the general public out there to see the quality that's coming out and the staff that's putting lots of professional time in it. I do appreciate your work.
Something that was very interesting for me a few years back was I caught the tour at the water treatment plant while they had what tank was that was empty that has the thing goes around inside?
Primary.
Primary. Mhm. So some of that was interesting to see too. Like, yeah, another one empty too at the same time. I don't remember, but that was interesting seeing all the structure that's inside those big concrete bowls.
I just like to add that I thought that there were an amazing number of seasoned people that were running those places, and it was just like nothing to them, but they've done it for so long, got such experience that, the competence of anything that varies a little bit is just really good.
They take their responsibility seriously.
Anything else? I don't see a closed session on here. We don't need one of those today. Wow. Record.
It's a good day.
Yeah. I've been doing this for quite a while and we haven't had one this short ever.
James isn't here.
That's it, yeah.
And he usually stands up, doesn't he?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think unless there's any more questions, we're ready to adjourn this meeting. Somebody want to?
I'd agree. I'd move to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming. And thank you for the comments again. What time do you have to go into work, Alan?
Thank you.
What time do you have to go into work to make it here today?